Doodlebud. What you're looking at here is what I believe is a first. This is a bolt action pen, but it's a fountain pen in this case. I have a bolt action ballpoint pen. Those are kind of cool and they're fairly popular. Neat idea, but it still writes like a ballpoint. We'd love to have this in a fountain pen, and retractable nibs, there's not many options. So I think this is the first retractable nib for a fountain pen that's done through bolt action. This comes to me from Ensso. It's brand new. It's currently on Kickstarter. That will be sold out very soon. Currently there's a 40% discount for early adopters on this. So if this is something you'd be interested in, I'm going to give you some details. I was lucky enough to be contacted by Carlo from Ensso and be granted an early version before the release to share my thoughts with you and give you some details. And I gotta tell you, I've been loving this thing. The bolt action's really cool. The nib writes wonderfully. It's very simple. It's made from grade 5 titanium. I'm gonna take it all apart, show you all the bits and pieces, do some writing samples, of course, and give you all sorts of fun little details. So let's get started. For reference, here are some other retractable nibs. This is a vintage Pilot Vanishing Point, an absolutely gorgeous pen. Pilot was the first one to come out with a retractable nib option. So, you have a clicker mechanism. This is a new version, but this is not made by Pilot. This is made by Mahjong. They essentially copied the design, but they make a nice version of it. Then Lamy came along with the different mechanism altogether, rotating, and the nib comes out very nice and satisfying. Gorgeous design, and it's a bit more of a pricey pen as well, but this is very, very unique. Like the looks of it, very minimalist, so this goes with Carlo's sort of overall design philosophy. This is one of his other pens. This is his Pocket Puma. This is also in titanium. I did the anodized job myself over here, so you can imagine what I'm going to be doing to this pen shortly after the review. Going to be having some fun with it as well. But it's very nice. I really like the feel of it. When I first saw it, I was very simple, but then it got to grow on me and all the little details I've noticed. And this pen is just fantastic. I asked Carlo, I said, did you essentially design this as the perfect pen for you? And he said, yes. Carlo is an architect, and so he's constantly drawing and sketching, and just this seemed like the perfect pen for that. Not only does it have a nice little nib, it comes in 2 sizes at the moment, a fine and medium. These nibs are made in Japan. When you flip it over, it actually writes wonderfully upside down. So these nibs are actually tuned up so they can write nicely in reverse as well, just to make it sort of the ultimate Sketcher's pen. It's good for writing as well, but I just envisioned Carlo using this when he's doing his drawings. I asked him and he said yes, he was the customer he had in mind. So let's start taking this thing apart, and I'll show you how this works. I'll have a link down in the description for the Kickstarter campaign. While we're here, we got 131 and 3/4 millimeter for the length. We got 9.6 or so for the diameter, and let's give you a weight on it right now. This has a converter installed. I'll show you that in a moment, and it is inked up, so we got about 23 grams there. There's a full disassembly you can do. I'll show you just the basic one in order to fill it. Let's get you a nice little close view of the body here. So it's all smooth, but it does have a bit of a sort of a satin finish on it, so it is nice and grippy. I was curious if this is going to be a slippery pen or not. Not slippery at all. It just has a perfect tactile feel to it. So here you have the end piece, this little nose cone here. It unscrews. This is actually a 2-piece nose cone. I'll show you that in a minute. That pops off. But this is the normal operation you would do if you want to ink up the pen. You got a spring, make sure not to lose that. And then out comes your nib unit here. It takes a standard international converter that we have here. This is a Schmidt. I think this is the K5. And this is your whole nib unit and housing. As you can see, there is some ink that gets on there, much like the regular Pilot Vanishing Point. If you take it out, there's always a little bit of ink on there. But that is just a little bit of wipage that goes on from a little silicone seal, a little gasket that's in there, which is what helps seals the deal. And I'll show you that in a moment. So this just slips on and off. I'll try not to make a mess while I do it here, but it's a full titanium housing that fits the feed and the nib, I should say. I'm doing this very carefully so I don't get splattering ink everywhere. But there it goes, and you can see it fits on there nice and secure, so you don't have to worry about anything coming apart. And when you put the pen back in, so now let's just say you filled it, put it in your bottle, fill it up, what you'll do, you'll slide the whole nib assembly in, and you be mindful to sort of align the nib to the bolt here if you want it straight here, or if you want it over here or in between. You just sort of line it up, drop it in, put on your spring, and put on your nose piece, and then you just screw it down. Now, one thing that can happen when you do this is if you're sort of making contact with the spring, the nib unit might come out in a different orientation. Let's see. It came out perfectly there. So you can see it's all in alignment. Sometimes I've had it where it comes off at an angle. It's in a different position than where I intended. All you do there is you grab a tissue, and then you can, don't go too hard, but you just grab the nib, and then you can just rotate it and then realign it where you need to align it. You're all good and say, okay, I want it right there. Perfect, and now you're all lined up. So that's the basic operation, but let's get into the more details here. We'll put that aside. This is a two-piece. So this unscrews, and this is what's housing the little silicone seal. So we'll, you can see it down in here. Let me pop that out so we can get a closer look. I'll just use a little paper clip here just to get it out of there. I don't want to puncture it or nothing, so nothing too sharp. Don't go crazy if you need to take it out. I believe, there we go. When you order one, there will be some extras that are supplied as well in case whatever, you rip it, you tear it, you lose it, something like that. He says they last quite a long time. This pen was tested for a year before being released, and he said he had absolutely no problems at all. So there's your little silicone piece, and there's just a nice tiny little X cut in there. What I wanted to show you is how the nib just slides through that little cut in the silicone, and then you go ahead and write, and then when it retracts again, the seal seals up no problem as well. Now, some people were wondering, oh, isn't the nib going to get all soaked and drenched? The answer to that is no. When the nib goes through the little cutout, what it actually does is it sort of primes the nib, so this will drag across the top of it. Yes, there'll be a little bit of ink on here as you saw, but it wasn't soaking wet or pooling or anything at all. The nib is just perfectly wet and ready to go, so it's not excessively drawing out ink or anything at all like that. So it's actually quite a nice feature, because maybe if you left the pen for a few weeks or a month or something like that, you'd be concerned about nib dry out. I am on my Pilot Vanishing Point and other pens as well. Here, even if it was dried up just a touch, the fact that it comes through and the gasket there slides over top the nib, it essentially just primes the nib so it's ready to go. You would do the same thing if you have a pen that's hard starting or something, or it's dried up a bit. You could just take your finger or a tissue, and just doing that will actually get it ready to go. So it's already being done actually every single time you extend the nib from the pen. So if you keep in track here, we have actually a very, very low part number count, and same goes for the rest of the pen body. Now this is a nice little detail. You can see how dirty my fingers are getting doing this. On here, this is the screw that goes into the bolt. I'm going to take that out. You could have done something very simple when you do this, right? You could just, this has like just a basic little knob on there. You could do something very, very simple that would save money, but he actually went ahead and designed a proper little knob. There's a look at it close up. So yeah, you could have gone very simple and economical, but instead went the extra little distance and spent a few moments on the design. Thought, let's do something nice. That's a beautiful little knob. This, again, this is all grade 5 titanium, which is the screw that goes in there. You know, nice action on those threads, just everything. Attention to detail is something I love. Tip it forward, and this is the part here that the back of the converter will sit in. So then when you slide this up and down, this is what actually is happening inside the pen. So this will slide inside of the pen body, and this is your little knob. So you can see it's very, very, very simple. Lastly, this piece comes out. I'm going to grab a dime here to open that up. Again, you don't need to do this for normal usage. You just undo the very front of the pen and do your inking and filling and all that stuff, and you're done. But if you want to see all the little parts here, that's it. One thing I'll let you know, there is sort of a little bit of a break-in period when you first get the pen. So you will push down the bolt action, do your writing, and then when you're time to retract the nib, sometimes it will actually stay down at the bottom. All that is just the silicone seal is brand new, so it's putting a little excess friction onto the nib. So if for whatever reason it is like that, you know, it'll go back up. You can just give it a little tap or something like that, touch it with your finger, and then it will go back in. But it took maybe I would say a day, max it was 2 days, and now that phenomenon has gone away. So it just takes a little bit of a break in when you first get the pen. I've also noticed the slide action on the bolt has smoothed out as well, because it is titanium on titanium. It wasn't that it was not smooth when I first got it, but you could sort of feel a little bit of a rubbing action, a little bit of grittiness to it. But now that I've used it, everything has smoothed out, and the whole bolt action, it's very nice, it's very smooth, and the nib just extends perfectly and retracts really well now, and I've been super happy with it. For a quick size comparison before we write with it, we have the Ensso Bolt, we have a vintage Pilot Vanishing Point, a new Mahjong A1, Pilot Metropolitan, and then the dollar store cheap version of a Bic pen. One thing about the Pilot Vanishing Point is it does have the built-in clip, which is handy. For me, and mostly I'm just using it as a roll stop when I set it down. I don't really clip my fountain pens, or really any pens for that matter, into my shirt pockets, but it is there. This one doesn't have a clip, but the nice thing about the Bolt is that's going to act as your roll stop as well. So you don't have to worry, even with the nib extended out, you set it down, it's not going to roll off your desk. Jumping in to leave a quick note here in the post edit, I spoke to Carlo at Ensso, and due to the huge popularity of the Kickstarter campaign, he increased it to unlimited. That way, more people could get their hands on his brand new pen. Writing with the Bolt is absolutely fantastic. The fine nib that's on here, you can get a medium nib as well. It's super smooth, and the reverse performs fantastically. I did a couple little fine lines here, but if you're doing some sketching, you're doing some drawing, and you need to quickly add a fine line in between, you just flip it over, switch in, and there you go. You can put that type of stuff in between the lines. So it's very natural, very intuitive, works extremely well. You can go between thick and thin, just flipping it over real fast. I did a quick little macro shot, as you saw there. This didn't turn out as well. I did a YouTube short, also put it up on my Instagram, added some saucy music, and showed the nib extending and writing with it as well. But it's a very nice pen. It's wet. I like how the nib comes out ready to go and primed. And let's get on to pricing, which I think is very attractive. The Kickstarter campaign, it's almost full. There's been a huge response. I was talking to Carlo. He said he was totally humbled by how quickly people jumped on board. But I told him, hey, look, people are going to jump on board. This is a brand new design, very unique. I don't think there's anyone else that has done a bolt action fountain pen before, so don't be surprised. The 40% off is what you're getting on the Kickstarter campaign. If you're an early adopter, $84 US is what it's going for. Once that intro period is over, the regular price will be $140 US, which is still a good price. But jump on the Kickstarter if this is something you want to do, because that is fantastic pricing. Like I said, you got fine and medium nib options. I will wrap it up and leave it there. I hope this answered any questions you have if you were considering jumping on board the Kickstarter campaign, or maybe you have picked one up, and hopefully I've answered a few more questions if you had any. The attention to detail is really good. It's simple, very few parts, which is nice. He actually told me he had another retractable design a while ago, but he never released it. He just thought it was, too many parts, too complicated, so it never came to fruition. He's very happy where this one has ended up, and yeah, I am too. I think he's done a great job. Nice and light, fits in the hand. I think pretty much anyone would be happy with this. Stay tuned, because I am planning to do some fun anodizing, have a few ideas rolling around in my head, and who knows, down the line maybe Ensso will have some anodized options for this, potentially even other materials, all sorts of fun stuff. So love to hear from you down there in the comments. While you're clicking around, click on the thumb, click on the subscribe. I'll try to answer any questions you have, and love to hear your feedback. Until then, we'll catch you next time.